Hello, my friends. Today's wrong question is, should we tax the robots? I get why people are asking this. You're paying attention. You see what's coming. AI is going to replace jobs on a scale we've never experienced, and our leaders don't look remotely prepared. But tax the robots is a late question. It assumes we wait until AI wealth piles up and then fight over how to claw it back. I think there's a better question. What if AI wealth was designed to be shared from the start? In this episode, I'm going to show you why something called a shared wealth fund could change everything, how this model is already working at scale all over the world, and why applying it to AI now might just be the most important economic design choice of our generation. I'm Josh Allan Dykstra. I've spent 20 years studying systems that work and systems that suck. And today, we're talking about one system we still have time to design before it frickin' breaks. This is the Hello Tomorrow podcast. Let's go. One quick moment to celebrate a fun milestone. Across the podcast, email, and YouTube, there's over 10,000 of us now in this community saying we care about a better tomorrow. Here's what I know. There's a lot of us rebels, and we're just getting started. Welcome to all our new friends. I'm so glad you're here. Today's topic starts with a story. It's a very specific story about wealth. Now, we've actually lived inside this particular tale for a very long time, especially if you're from the US like me. What's the story? It's the story of the rugged individualist, the self-made success, that ambitious young person who pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, who, against all odds, earned their place in the world through grit, intelligence, and hard frickin' work. You know the story, right? It's a powerful tale. For a long time, it worked well enough that we didn't really question it. But this story has a big problem. It was never really true. Now, we need to talk about this because I'm pretty sure AI is going to break this story apart entirely. Not because technology is the villain, but because AI makes something we've been able to ignore for generations impossible to ignore now. What's that thing? The ecosystem. I know the word ecosystem might conjure up visions of rainforests or coral reefs and cycles of life in the biological world. All that's correct. But there's other ecosystems all around us too. Every city is an ecosystem. Every market is an ecosystem. Every language is an ecosystem. A city doesn't function without roads and water systems and power grids and collective agreements to maintain them. As we discussed a couple weeks ago, markets don't function without the support of a state to reinforce regulations and laws. A language doesn't exist without thousands of people shaping it together over generations. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything depends on conditions created by what came before and what surrounds it now. Monetary wealth works the same way. It doesn't emerge solely from individuals, but if you were to believe the story of the rugged individualist, it would have you believe that a wealth ecosystem just doesn't exist, that it was through their hard work and their indomitable spirit that they became a success. Even when we kind of knew deep down that this couldn't be the whole picture, the story held together emotionally because it felt useful and it was inspirational. I mean, I want to be the guy who succeeds when nobody else can. But this story also did things that were not constructive. First, it justified inequality without requiring cruelty. We talked about this in the economics episode a couple weeks ago. If you earned what you have, then inequality isn't injustice. It's just the natural result of different people making different choices. Second, this story moralized wealth, which means if success comes from merit and being rich means you must be good, which should probably put you on a magazine cover. Most tragically, though, this story erased its own ecosystem. This was, I think, the biggest deception of all, because nothing grows outside an ecosystem. No achievement exists in isolation. Every success rests on support networks and community scaffolding and public education and city infrastructure, institutional stability, and the sheer luck of being born in the right place, in the right body, in the right country, in the right century. The rugged individualist myth survived by editing all that out. It let us ignore the ecosystem that actually makes success possible. But I think AI is going to kill this story for good. Why? Because AI doesn't just help us write things and automate tasks, it illuminates our collective inheritance. What the heck do I mean by that? Well, modern AI systems are built on the foundation of publicly funded research, open scientific knowledge, shared language and culture, data generated by billions of ordinary human lives, and infrastructure that's been paid for collectively over generations. That's just the facts, y'all. And yet, somehow we're still pretending the value these systems create belongs to whoever monetizes it the best. That mismatch creates a fracture I think a lot of us are feeling. It's why phrases like tax the robots or redistribute the efficiency gains keep showing up in the comments of my Who Buys Your Stuff Robots episode. Those comments, they're not precise policy arguments, of course, but they are quite truthful in the way they're responding to this moral dissonance we feel. I think we can feel that something here with AI is off. We see that value is being generated from something collective, but then captured as if it were something private. I haven't heard this problem articulated quite like this, but I think our intuition is very right. I think what we're feeling is a sense of, hold up, tech bros, that value you're extracting from, it didn't come from your efforts alone. To call back to my favorite Jurassic Park scene from last week, our LLM scientists stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as they could, then packaged it and sold it. So I think it's time we stand up and say, sorry, tech bros, what you're selling does not belong to you. And once I start talking about shared monetary gains, 3 letters immediately enter the dialogue. You know what they are? UBI, Universal Basic Income. I'm not sure when you first heard of this idea, but I had no idea how old this actually is and how many different people have supported it over the years. Thomas Paine, the common sense guy from American Revolution days, proposed this in 1797. He called it a national fund. It was compensation for the loss of common land that enclosure had stolen from ordinary people. Martin Luther King championed this in the 1960s as the solution to poverty. Richard Nixon, a Republican president, remember, nearly got this passed into law as a negative income tax for households with working parents in 1970 and then again in 1971. It cleared the House twice with bipartisan support, died in the Senate, but not because people thought it was radical, because they thought the payments were, get this, too low. In recent years, UBI experiments have run in Kenya, Finland, California, dozens of other places. Andrew Yang brought it into the 2020 presidential race, called it the Freedom Dividend. Sam Altman of ChatGPT has been helping to fund UBI research for a number of years. That organization is called Open Research. They have a really beautiful, informative website. It's worth checking out. And just last week, a UK government minister publicly said they're weighing universal basic income to help soft land industries that are being wiped out by AI. So, UBI, not a fringe idea, not even a new idea. It's a design response to a system problem that keeps recurring. What do we do when our economy generates wealth faster than it generates jobs? Now, you've maybe heard about mixed results from UBI experiments. Totally fair. I'm not saying UBI is the perfect answer to the AI question. I actually think there's a better solution we're going to talk about in a moment. But I did want to mention that the mixed results we've seen from UBI, I think, mostly come from not testing it as consistently and broadly as we would actually need UBI to be. Most experiments thus far have been designed to test whether poor people waste money. They don't. Whether free cash kills work ethic. It doesn't. And whether unconditional monetary support improves well-being. It does. All that said, there's a related but slightly different angle on this topic that solves our AI conundrum even better. A shared wealth fund. I'm not pointing us in this direction because there's anything wrong with UBI per se, but because new language helps us conceive of new possibilities. And because this phrase more accurately describes what we actually need. So, what the heck is a shared wealth fund? You might be surprised to know we actually have one of these already functioning right here in the US, and in one of our right-leaning states, no less. Alaska has had something called the Alaska Permanent Fund that's been paying residents since 1982. Every Alaskan gets an annual paycheck from oil reserves called the Permanent Fund dividend. It's wildly popular. I want us to build a shared wealth fund on the back of AI technology. This would be transformational. Why? Well, because AI wealth is far more profound than oil wealth. It scales infinitely. Information isn't contained by planetary boundaries in the same way as oil. And a shared wealth fund is the perfect solution to help stabilize the loop that holds up the world, because AI tech is so clearly derived from our collective contributions over the past few generations. An AI-based shared wealth fund would do a bunch of really powerful things. One, it would decouple survival from employment. We need to get ahead of this before mass unemployment forces our hand. Number two, it would distribute returns from a collective system. This AI thing that we all helped build would pay something back to those of us who helped make it possible. Three, it would create pre-distribution instead of redistribution. We design these things up front, which is easier and better than trying to claw the money back. And four, we remove desperation as an organizing force over the coming decade. We don't need to shove ourselves into another Great Depression, my friends. With a little thought and planning, we could prevent that outcome. Shared wealth funds aren't charity, they're dividends from systems we already paid into. They're an acknowledgement of the ecosystem, a recognition that the value being generated was never individual in the first place. Also, we already have successful models for shared wealth funds all over the world. Norway has had a sovereign wealth fund since 1990, built on oil revenues. It's now worth nearly $2 trillion, largest in the world. Every Norwegian citizen is a beneficiary. They use the fund to invest globally, and the returns help fund pensions and healthcare and education. Singapore runs multiple sovereign wealth funds that manage national savings and also invest for long-term returns. These funds help stabilize their economy and benefit Singaporeans collectively. Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, all Gulf states with similar models. When collective resources generate massive value, these funds are used to ensure wealth gets distributed collectively and not just funneled back into private pockets. And of course, we got one right here in the US. These aren't unproven experiments. They're functioning systems working at scale across wildly different political contexts. If we can do this with oil, why not with AI? Perhaps most importantly, a shared wealth fund built on AI would finally kill the rugged individualist story for good. Because I hope you agree, AI makes the ecosystem around wealth impossible for us to ignore. We can tell ourselves we've earned our wealth when it came from our labor or our business or our deals, maybe. But it is not fair for people to tell themselves they earned returns from things that were so clearly built on publicly funded research and open source tools and collective knowledge and data from billions of people and infrastructure created through generations of shared investment. That's crazy. When we see how clearly AI breaks the rugged individualist myth, I think shared dividends stop sounding strange and just start sounding like good basic accounting. Now, here's why the timing on this matters so much. Right now, AI wealth is still forming. The ownership structures are still being established. We're in a moment where decisions about who gets to participate in the returns are still a bit up for grabs. It's a little like building a house and putting in plumbing. From what I hear, it's highly preferable to install the plumbing while the house is being built. Putting in plumbing later, a lot harder. This is not yet a disaster, but it's gonna get much harder if we wait. Right now, we're in a before moment. Now, we've talked about this. Most systems only change once pain is obvious and widespread. We regulate after crashes. We reform after collapse. We reinforce structures after they fail. But what if we could do something different this time? AI is giving us something we don't always get with system failures: clear advance warning. We can already see productivity decoupling from labor. We can already see ownership concentrating faster than wages are increasing. We can see demand that's being propped up by debt instead of income. We see the fault lines forming. This is the before moment. Now is the time to act. An AI-based shared wealth fund is a proactive move. It doesn't wait for mass unemployment. It doesn't require people to fail first. It doesn't treat humans as collateral damage of progress. It simply acknowledges reality early while we still have room to design. My friends, we need our leaders to be talking about this now. Now, what's interesting is that serious academics are landing in this same place just a few days ago. Stanford University published an article about this exact topic, noting that if U.S. companies had deposited a small slice of their founding shares into a public wealth fund a few decades ago, back when those shares were worth nothing, the U.S. would already be paying every citizen a meaningful dividend. No taxes, no clawbacks, just good pre-distribution design. Now, this tells us two very important things. One, this idea isn't radical. And two, it needs to happen now. Okay, at this point, you might be thinking, okay, but what can I do about this? Great question. That means it's time for our optimistic rebellion. If you're new, we do this every week. Some weeks we work on our mindset. Sometimes we take on noticing practices or micro behavior experiments. This week's optimistic rebellion is all about taking action. I'm going to ask you to do something. And what you exactly do, of course, is up to you. But here's 3 options. The first action you could take is to share this idea with someone, especially someone influential. I'm not assuming we all know these people, but I'm betting some of us in this community do. So if you happen to know anyone in a societal leadership role, an elected official, a public figure, maybe even an Instagram influencer, I don't know, send them this episode. We just need more people in positions of influence to start taking seriously this idea and talking about it. If we can get this idea into the dialogue, I think it might catch on. The second action you could take is to start adopting new language for yourself. Start guiding UBI conversations toward the idea of a shared wealth fund, because new language helps people think differently. Tell people about a pre-distribution design when they bring up taxes, which are always redistribution. Talk about how it's our collective participation that made AI technology possible. Start discussing how we should all have ownership in this because we all helped build it. The third action you could take is to try a new experiment with me. There are a lot of possible things we could do to help this idea spread. I think this idea is really important, and I didn't want to spend 10 minutes listing all the ideas. So I decided to try to create something new. I called it a Shared Wealth Fund Field Guide. So this is a beautiful little PDF booklet you can download for free. It has 6 more ideas for practical actions to do. Also a great thing to spread around. If you like these field guides, by the way, I can make them for future optimistic rebellions. Just let me know what you think of it in the comments. The download link is in the show notes on YouTube or at joshallan.com/SWF for Shared Wealth Fund. joshallan.com/SWF. All right. AI is throwing us some major warning signals, my friends. We've been talking about them on this show. We don't need to panic, but we do need to act. Because once this becomes a crisis, the choices available to us are going to get harsher and narrower. Right now, we still have space. And remember, space is the language of the rebellion. So let's use the space we have now to help make something better happen for all of us. Well, maybe not for the billionaires, but the rest of us. Believe me, those rugged individuals, they'll be just fine. This is the Hello Tomorrow podcast, where we cut through the noise, expose the systems shaping our future, and leave with more clarity about what comes next. If this idea gave you a better question to ask about AI wealth, please share it with somebody who's still asking the wrong one. And if you're thinking, I I wish our leaders were having conversations like this. That's exactly the work I do as a keynote speaker. You can find me at joshallan.com, JOSHALLAN.com. Thank you for being here. See you next week.